5 people. Ruhi, Eric,
Here.
Christopher,
Here.
Courtney, Jinda,
Here.
Madeline,
Here.
Aaron,
Here.
Jonathan, Charles,
Here.
Adam,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
Ian,
Here.
Cindy,
Here.
Joseph,
Here.
Corey,
Here.
Mr. Kim, Sam,
Here.
Paul,
Here.
Daniel,
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
See, isn't this great? It's here because I'm skipping all the people that are always absent. Stephen,
Here.
Sandra, Shalina,
Here.
Matthew,
Here.
Roxanne,
Here.
Joe,
Here.
Niala, I'm sorry, Ms. Scott, Niela, Jeremy,
Here.
Nicholas. I was hoping I never had to hear that tone in your voice when you told me for not pronouncing your name again. It's starting to really, every time it's a little deeper. Deeper. I feel real, now it's literally the guilt. Because I am, after all, Catholic, so I do feel intense guilt when it's wrong. On the other hand, I feel that Catholics feel guilt, Protestants feel guilt is to Catholics as blank is to Protestants. Shame. Shame. Protestants are taught shame. Be ashamed of your body parts. Never use the poo-poo word or the F word. That is bad. Catholics don't give a darn. A Catholic feels bad if he uses the Lord's name in vain, in which case you feel guilt. I'll run around this room naked all day long. I won't feel any shame. If it makes somebody really feel bad and hurt, then I'll feel guilt for running around naked. Shame, no. Okay. Jews also live in a world full of shame, guilt, but no shame. Okay, interesting enough, although there's no other relationship between Catholics and Jews. I was watching a talk show last night. Conan O'Brien was talking about that with his host. The one thing they had in common. He took martial arts in a Jewish high school class, and he said, what kind of martial arts was that? It was guilt-oriented. Guilt-oriented martial arts. Yeah, very funny. It was a pretty good at first episode from Conan. Pretty good. My wife says that his singing is very good, but that you could tell you could tell the part of the song where it wasn't being played very well because that was Conan's guitar solo.
Yeah, when he soloed.
He wasn't very good, was he?
Well, I mean, he was playing with Jack White though, and he's like,
I know.
like the greatest guitar.
So you're saying that his guitar playing was actually above average?
Yeah, for someone that was playing with a band like that,
Yeah.
he did pretty good.
So it was pretty good. But even I could tell that it didn't sound as good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. I turned to my wife and I said, is he a good guitarist? And she went, okay, Nicholas, Vivian,
Here.
Jessica. Who isn't here? Who is here now? Didn't hear their call. Voice. All that means you weren't here last week. Last name?
Sarah.
What? Huh?
Sarah.
Yeah. First letter again?
D.
Ah! I was looking at the P's. I don't hear very well. I'm sorry. There, Karen. Next. That was it. Good. See? All right. All right. So let's just roll along now. So here we go now. I want you to realize that the election of 1836 occurred in 1836, not 1837. Duh. And laws that are passed one year always go into effect the next year, don't they? So did Americans who were voting in November of 1836 know that the laws that Andrew Jackson had just pushed through Congress, like the Species Circular Act, were going to destroy the economy in the next year?
No.
They did not know that. People cannot respond to something they don't know is going to happen yet, because it hasn't happened. All right, the thing about the past is that while the past was going on, it was the present. Okay? And the future is never knowable. So the American people vote for Andrew Jackson's not going to run for a third term. He's not going to break George Washington's tradition of serving only 2 terms. And he is actually quite old by this time. So his vice president, Martin Van Buren, one of these so unimportant that I can promise you that there won't be a test question where the answer is Martin Van Buren. If he shows up, I'll bet he's the wrong answer. And I just heard the test is no question about Martin Van Buren. one of these presidents who's going to have a very unsuccessful term, because 4 years in the office for Martin Van Buren, 1836 to 1840, was almost entirely a period of depression for America. The Panic of 1837 began right when Martin Van Buren's presidency began. We always blame presidents and the party in power for an economic collapse. The economy started going down in America recently in 2008, so we blamed the Republicans and voted George Bush out of office and brought Obama in, the first black man as president of the United States. But we all realized we didn't vote for him for president because he was the first black man or a liberal Democrat. It's because we blamed the Republicans for the economic collapse. 2 years later, the economy had not recovered yet, and we just voted the Democrats out of the House of Representatives as a result. If the economy hasn't recovered in 2 years, we will have a new president whose name is not Obama. If the economy has begun to improve, I promise you he will be reelected. That's just the way things always are and always have been in this country. It actually allows you to feel a little bit less angry about politics, doesn't it? It takes a little bit of the edge off of it, okay? That it really has to do with economic factors that are beyond people's control, and to a certain extent, even politicians. Okay. So Van Buren's presidency was burdened by his inability to do anything about the Depression, and the Democrats were seen to be out of ideas. Democrats are seen as out of ideas, out of fresh faces. A lot of opposition is building up in the country. A lot of people came to see Andrew Jackson as an unpleasant dictatorial type president, an egotist, arrogant, ready to push people around at any time. And there were large groups of Americans joining in what can only be called anti-Jackson organizations. We're talking about the origin of a new opposition party, the Whig Party. W-H-I-G, reminding you that back in the 19th century, the word liberal only meant liberal arts education. Liberal, if you said liberal back then, it meant, oh, you mean music, art, science, poetry, mathematics, the 7 muses. I don't really know what they are, but that was the original origin of the word liberal. It meant a wide-ranging education with an emphasis on the arts rather than science, liberal arts. They would have used the word Whig, someone who leaned to the left and believed that the government had an important role to play in society, and weren't a bunch of libertarians like the Democrats would have been called Whigs. Okay. The Whigs were made up of 2 groups of Americans. People who were angry at the arbitrary leadership style of Andrew Jackson. There's the big word for today, arbitrary. If I were to grade your papers in an arbitrary manner, how would I do it?
Without regard to the actual content, just sort of as you please.
Very good. Ding, ding, ding. A person with good vocabulary skills. I'm now calling you smart, sir. As we already pointed out, vocabulary is how you really judge people's intelligence, not by particular classes they took or this or that. Because if you haven't taken that class, how can you have that skill? But we all have to speak. So vocabulary is the key. Arbitrary is I go up to the 2nd floor and I throw your chest down, and if they hit 6 to 70, 80, 90, and the ones that fall all the way to the ground get a 100. Okay? There was a Roman emperor once named Caligula who was a madman. And he was having people come to, you know, when kings have open court, people can come and talk to them. And some guy showed up and he says, I've lost all my money in gambling. Can I please have a pound of gold? And the emperor says, what a lovely man. Please give this man a pound of gold. And the next guy comes up and says, I'm not doing so well. Can I have a pound of gold? What do you think? I'm made out of money. Take this man out and execute him. There, arbitrary. You would all rather have an evil boss than an arbitrary boss? Have any of you ever had arbitrary employers? That just you can't tell one day or another what they're going to do or say. They're the worst possible types of leaders. Okay. And anti-Masons. So now you get my 5-minute miniature lecture on the Masonic, on the Masons, on the stonemasons, the Grand Order of Stonemasons. Okay. It's a secret organization. It's a closed organization. You don't join the Masons. They invite you to join. You have to be rich and powerful. It's a secret organization made up of rich and powerful people. Are rich and powerful people already important by themselves? If you get a couple hundred rich and powerful people in a room, aren't you going to have a collection of a lot of powerful people right there?
Yeah.
Okay, now they all join an organization, a club of some kind. That makes it important right away, regardless of any secret plans or lascivious origins or anything. Anything that has mostly powerful and wealthy people in it is going to have an important influence on society. And men like to hang out. Now, in reality, when you join the Masons, all you're probably going to do is drink a lot of beer and play a lot of pool. There are like 33 levels of the Masons, and until you're up to about level 20, they don't tell you nothing about the organization at all. Okay, you have to be it's entirely based on seniority. So the wonderful thing is that if Bill Gates was a Mason for 10 years and you were a Mason for 20 years, you could tell him to bend over and take his 20 licks. Whackity, 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 whack. Okay, and he would have to say, may I have, yes, thank you, sir, may I have another? Okay, seniority. It's entirely based on seniority once you're in the organization. Now, whether the Masons have been around for hundreds of years, at least 300 or 400 years. You are not required to deny that you are a member of the Masons if you are, but you are required to not tell anyone who's not a Mason anything about the Masons. So the only people who write books about Masons are former Masons who've been drugged out for some reason. And these are people who have a gripe, don't they, and bitter. So should we believe all the things that they say about the Masons? Devil worshippers? No. Or not? I don't know. But you have to understand that the people who have, that's enough of that. They themselves claim that they are originators from the Templar Order of the Templars, from the Crusaders' eras, and have all sorts of stories to tell in their secret dictionaries and encyclopedias, which you can buy at half-price bookstores all across America. I own one. Okay, I own the 1946 Mason's Encyclopedia. Very interesting, because as you might not be surprised, both the communists and the Nazis tried their very best to exterminate every last Mason from the earth, as the Catholic Church also has tried to do as well. So you've got to be interesting if commies, fascists, and Catholics are all out to get you. Because they come from different sides of the spectrum. Okay? Solomon's Temple, Solomon's architect, secret troves found deep under the ground in Jerusalem after the Crusaders arrived. All of that phony baloney, hooey. They have a tendency to project the information a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, like this, like this, like that, because most people aren't very good at assimilating and categorizing, but that's what I'm very good at, so I was able to figure it all out very quickly. Indeed, what they were pointing at, the things they weren't saying, stood out like a sore thumb, wah, wah, and I was able to put that together. Sherlock Holmesian of the tendencies. All of that aside, maybe they do decide every year exactly who wins the Academy Award, who wins the Super Bowl, and everything else, and who gets to be president. Or maybe they don't. But what's this right here? This is our $1 bill, isn't it? We all recognized it. There's George Washington, who was the Grand Master of all Masons of North America while he was alive. So he already had a critically important position before the war even started and became president. But I'm going to relate to that in just a moment. I mean, what do Masons believe in? Well, read the Constitution of the United States. That should tell you. They wrote it. And that's what they believe in. Democracy, freedom, liberty, rule of law. Enlightenment philosophy has always been what the Masons have pushed. 1930s, the American dollar was redesigned. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was president then, a very high-ranking Mason. And he came up with the idea of putting this Masonic symbol in the American dollar, that the eagle with the 13 arrows and the 13 stars, and this represents our love of peace. And then over here is a pyramid with an eyeball floating over the top. Did any of you ever wonder what is there? Or are you still like kids, just accepting everything in the world the way it is just because that's the way it is, like a dog or a cat? Okay, but as you become an adult, you start questioning, why are things the way they are? Because this is a pyramid with an eyeball on it. It is the most well-known symbol of the Masons above the thing with the stonemason tools that you'll see on pickup trucks all around Texas. If you look at them, with the little G in the center, which does not mean God. I promise you that, because that's The word that starts with G would be a Latin word or a French word, not English. I promise you that. What the G actually means, I have no idea. I'm not a Mason. Okay? Although, interestingly enough, I actually happen to believe in almost everything the Masons believe in. And as a Catholic, the church has just changed. It is now no longer a, what's the worst kind of sin for a Catholic? What's that phrase? Mortal sin. It's no longer a mortal sin to be a Mason. Now all you have to do is go to the priest, get confession for being a Mason, then quit and never join again, and it's just a regular sin. Knights of Columbus, I know. They have the Knights of Columbus. It's just like the Masons, except with no power, influence, money, fun, or anything. You get to wear this silly little outfit and sell hot dogs at the church. Thanks. It's not. Sell stuff. Things. I never joined. But that's correct. That's why it was created, the Knights of Columbus, to give Catholic Americans something to join who felt bad that they couldn't join the Masons. The most important point about the Masons is that if it weren't for them, America couldn't have been created, because they were the only organizations that America had in common. When we launched the revolution, we were 13 separate colonies, 13 separate states with very little in common. Yankees who don't like Southerners, Southerners who don't like Yankees, nobody likes New Yorkers. Nobody wants anything to do with the Quakers. How do we ever cooperate and win the revolution? Because we had one thing in common. There were Masonic lodges in every single colony. They were all interrelated, part of the same organization. They had meetings. They wrote letters to each other. They were part of a organization, of a hierarchy. George Washington was the Grand Master of North America for the Masons. When he said something was needed to be done, every single Mason did it. And they said, let's launch a revolution against the British, let's form the Sons of Liberty, let's launch a revolution, let's sign the Declaration of Independence, and let's write the Constitution. So it was done. In many ways, the Masons came to see the United States as their ultimate grand experiment in creating the Novus Ordem Seculum, the New World Order. Democracy, freedom and liberty, overthrowing monarchies and dictatorships and replacing them with American-style democratic constitutions.
I thought that was New Secular Order.
I'm going to call it the New World Order, New Secular Order. Yes, it would be also an Enlightenment concept. Yes, which then came up in the first George Bush's rhetoric when he was president, and of course George Bush's high-ranking Mason, although his son I don't think necessarily is. I know Obama's not a Mason. The Masons are not the only secret organization. After all, there's the Trilateral Commission, which is far more terrifying than the Masons ever were, which Henry Kissinger is a leader member of. Of course, all the high-ranking members of the Masons are members of the Skull and Bones organization. Skull and Bones organization, with the Bushes are very high-ranking members, are only made up of elite Masons. Okay, you have to be a Mason first before you can be a Skull and Bone. Then, of course, there's Shriners. You've heard of Shriners. Shriners are Masons who volunteer and donate money and time. So if you are a Mason and you want to help donate money and build a hospital, you can join the Shriners. All Shriners are Masons, but not all Masons are Shriners. All Skull and Bones are Masons, but not all Masons are Skull and Bones. Okay, those are all the secret organizations. And a couple more. There's a vacation secret organization, all rich and powerful people. Bill Clinton is a member of that one, where they get together and have a long 2-week vacation and make secret deals that run the entire planet after that. I forget what that organization is called. Huh?
Trilateral Commission.
No, that's another one.
Bilderberg Group.
Yeah. Huh?
Bilderberg Group.
The Bilderberg Group. Okay. All right. That scared the hell out of me. Okay. It's a reference to the fact that we are trying to build a more perfect society, but human beings are fallible. So this represents how far we've gotten, and this represents yet to be achieved, the ultimate perfection. Or it means something, I don't know. I'm not a Mason. But anyway, the Masons, as a secret organizations can only run things if they stay behind the scenes with their faces obscured. If they step forward into the limelight and admit that they are running things, people get mad and you lose control. And that is exactly what happened in the 1820s and the 1830s. By the 1820s and the 1830s, the Masons had become arrogantly conceited. They felt that America was all their responsibility, that everyone should bow down, say thank you, and kiss their asses because they're Masons. And Americans don't like that attitude by elitist upper-class people. As we mentioned before, we expect rich people to act in public like regular people and talk without not with a special accent or dress differently, but act like the rest of us. There was a feeling that Masons got away with everything, including murder, because Masons got away with everything, including murder. The most famous case occurred in the 1820s in Philadelphia. I'm shortening it now. But there was the first man to write a tell-all book exposing the secrets of the Masons and claiming that at the top the Masons were not Christians but devil worshippers, was attacked in the middle of the day in Philadelphia by a group of men all in black fancy suits who grabbed this guy, threw him in a carriage, and rode him out of town while he screamed at the top of his lungs that thousands of people could hear, help me, the Masons are killing me, the Masons are killing me, help. Then he was found dead. They put all those men on trial. The judge, the lawyer, and the jury were all Masons, and they were acquitted, every single one. Of course they were acquitted. This made Americans very angry, very, very angry. And all across the country, people began organizing anti-Mason clubs, Mason haters. Okay, so instead of joining the Masons, you would join the anti-Masons, the anti-Masonic Lodge, whose goal is to destroy those damn Masons. But it was a political party. The anti-Masons decided to join with the anti-Jacksons, and after all, Jackson was an extremely high-ranking Mason. How do you think he got to become a general and then President of the United States? Because he's competent. The world is full of competent people. You got 100 people you're interviewing, you got 100 people, they're all approximately as good for the job. How do you pick someone? You pick someone who has special connections, don't you? Exactly. With Masons, just like a fraternity or a sorority, they will have a secret handshake or a secret set of words they could use. And if they use those words and you're a Mason too, you what them? You hire them every time. You guys know that for fraternities and sororities, don't you? I mean, what is the purpose of joining a fraternity for 3 years to have your life a living hell so that as a senior you can treat other people like dirt? Is that good enough to join the organization? Sure, they got free beer. You can find beer all over the place. Why go through that? Because once you get out of college, if you go in a job interview and that person turns out to be a member of your fraternity or sorority, you are guaranteed that job at higher pay than you would get otherwise. Okay, so the value of secret organizations. And these people formed together the Whig Party to oppose the dictatorial policies of the Democrats. By 1840, they were ready to win an election. It's 1840. The Democrats look bad, they're out of ideas, people hate Martin Van Buren, he's blamed for the recession. It's an opportune time to get someone in power from the Whig Party. And the Whigs could have run their most famous leader, Henry Clay. Henry Clay and his American system were the heart and soul of the Whig Party. The way that Alexander Hamilton's ideas were the ideas of the original Federalist Party, the way that Thomas Jefferson's ideas were the birth of the Democratic Party, so Henry Clay's ideas were the Whig Party. But by this time, Henry Clay was a well-known politician with high negatives as well as high positives. A phrase I've been using so much. That it's usually better to bring a political outsider, someone who's exciting but new, that you don't know much about. You know, you've got a wife or a girlfriend, you've been married to them or dating them from years and years, you find out every little flaw in their personality until you dump them to date someone new who covers up their flaws for a few months or so you think they're great. After a while, you find out what's wrong with them too, and now you've got another ex. You can continue that your whole life, because every human being has flaws. Okay. There's a woman who was writing to Dear Abby that she's been dating this guy and trying to be really nice, and now she's afraid he thinks that she never farts or anything. You know, and she's starting to be a normal human being, and she showed up without makeup on one day, and he said, "You're terrible." Okay, well, there you go. No, it's always good to pick a war hero. A war hero, William Harrison. William Harrison was nominated by the Whigs in 1840. The general from the war with England, 1812. The victor at the Battle of Tippecanoe against the Shawnee Indians. His vice president candidate happened to be a guy named Tyler. So the campaign theme was Tippecanoe and Tyler too. It rhymes, and as we all know in America, if it rhymes, it's true. Okay, because dumb people will accept anything that rhymes. By dumb people, I mean average voter. Okay. And it works for it works for jurors too, because if the glove don't fit, you must acquit.
Man was innocent.
Yeah. So if they had that lawyer that rhymes, we got him off. Okay? Because the jurors could remember that. So William Harrison is the perfect choice, and he wins the election of 1840. Now, he was over 70 at a time when most Americans didn't live past 60. And there were rumors that he was ill, in ill health, and incapable of being president. He felt very strong and healthy. So he wrote for himself a 4-hour speech to give on his inauguration, third week in March. You would have thought that would be a warm day, but in Washington, D.C., it's not always warm in March. In fact, there was freezing rain that day, and he gave his 3-hour speech in full in short sleeves, caught pneumonia, and died within a month. Okay, so William Harrison was the shortest term of president. He was only president for 1 month. Sad thing is this has very negative repercussions for the country, going all the way down to 1860 and the Civil War. Remember, Henry Clay's American system was trying to heal the social wounds of slavery. One of the things the American system was trying to do: raise tariffs to help Yankee industries, then spend that tariff money to help develop industries in the South that wouldn't be dependent on slavery, to try to wean the South off slavery. Well, now that the Whigs have won the election, I suppose that the American system got passed into law and it was given a chance. But that didn't happen because William Henry Harrison died unexpectedly soon. And his vice president, John Tyler, Tyler, wasn't really a Whig. He was a Democrat whom the Whigs put on the ticket to try to get some Democrat votes. You know what I'm saying? You know, very often that is done. People might think you are too liberal, so you pick as your vice president running mate someone who's more conservative, or vice versa, under the assumption that the vice president doesn't get to be president because no one expects to die. Okay? And John Tyler ruins everything. The Congress voted to raise the tariff to help Yankee industries, but then Tyler refused to redistribute the revenue. Tyler refused to redistribute the tariff revenues to the southern and western states. So the only people who benefited were Yankees, making southerners and westerners very angry. They felt they'd been lied to. The American voters had voted for the Whigs because the Whigs had promised to introduce the American system. Then they had not done that. And in America, if you make a major promise to the voters and you don't follow through on that promise, you get walloped. We might say that in 2006, when the Democrats took control of the House and the Senate, and in 2008, when they took control of the White House, they made a tacit promise for economic recovery. That within 2 years, Obama promised us we'd have recovery. We didn't get it, so we punished him. If we don't get economic recovery after he's been president for 4 years, that'll be it for him. And regardless of whatever else he does, the country recovers. If the country recovers and he accomplishes nothing else, he will be reelected. If he accomplishes all sorts of things, but the country is still in a recession, he will not be reelected. That's just the way things go. And it's always been that way in America. So it was a bad stroke for the Whigs. A blow the Whigs never really fully recovered from. Very bad luck, the Whigs. The Whigs only elected 2 men president. And they both died in office of natural causes. They were both generals. The only other Whig to get elected president is in 1848, Zachary Taylor. And Zachary Taylor dies of natural causes after being president for only 2 years. So the Whigs never really had a chance to accomplish the things that they were hoping to try to accomplish, like preserving the Union. That's what Whigs wanted to do, preserve the Union. The Whig Party, as we will see later, is dead by the mid-1850s. It has ceased to exist. And within a few years after that, the country's in a civil war. Okay, so that is the end of all the material for test number 3. Now, before I move along, it is necessary for a teacher to say, all right, the test is today, tomorrow, or the next day. Have any of you done enough studying to the point in which you actually have some questions you want to ask me? You came to class and you want to ask the teacher some questions about the test. Will the teacher give you time to do that? Now, is there anyone who has any questions about the test at all? Yes?
Are there going to be questions about the Masons?
What did she just say?
Are there going to be questions about the Masons?
Is it on the study guide? No. It's not in the study guide, it's not on there. Are they part of the story of the election of 1840? Are they part of the origin of the Whig Party? Are the Masons part of the origin of the Whig Party?
Yes.
As opposition, the Whigs were formed by people who opposed the Masons. So, like a lot of things, to understand this material, you'll need to know who they are. But there'll be no specific question. The Masons are A, B, C, D. God, how would you write that? How would you write such a question and be fair to them or unfair? It would be a very difficult question for me to write. And so it's probably very unlikely to be on the test. If at all, it would have to be a true-false question. I think it would be easier to write a true-false question. I could just say something blatantly false or something straightforwardly right, like the Masons are a very powerful organization within the United States, true or false, you know. I don't know. But that's a worthwhile question. More? Anything else? Yes, yes.
When's the last day they get started?
Wednesday. Next, yes. Yes.
About the Indian nations,
Yes.
are we going to need to know exactly like where they were located? Like,
No, but their names. No, but their names will show up. I mean, you might be asked, this Indian tribe sued the United States to keep their land.
Those 5 tribes that we discussed?
Yeah, the 5 civilized tribes. That's a perfect essay question. Okay, I think. Multiple choice question. It's a good one. I think it's on the test. I'm pretty sure it's on the test. Okay. And then there might be a question, this Indian tribe fought the United States but didn't lose their land. Won the war. Seminoles. There you go. Yeah, there's an example of the way you could write a multiple choice question. Okay, for that. More questions? Yes.
The era of good feelings?
Yes.
Is that necessarily one?
Well, it's the name of one of the president's administrations. Monroe administration is known as the era of good feelings. That's enough. I also explained a little bit to help it, but once again, when I explain things to make them understandable, am I going to put that in the multiple choice question or just the actual information itself? Just the actual information, which hopefully you understand a little better now. Because trying to memorize unassociated piece of information that all just seems to jumble in your head is very difficult. So it's really my job to try to make it make some sense. But the multiple choice question would just then be A, B, C, D. And the answer would be, you know, C, era of good feelings. And I might make up 3 other false phrases, you know. Or even better, the era of good feelings was under the presidency of, and then A, B, C, D. Yes?
The pet banks were all like the banks that Jackson favored and gave all the money to.
That's correct. That he chose a whole bunch of banks that were pro-Democrat and then refused to give any of the money to pro-Whig banks.
That's all they were. It's the people that supported him and he gave money.
That's right. So it's banks owned by Masons. Most likely. You get the idea. Okay. Yes, pet banks. Good. Any more? These are all good. Quick questions I'm able to answer very quickly. Yes? Yes?
On the frontier settlement, do you want us to put like the immigration and like...
Now, frontier settlement is Americans moving west to set up farms on the frontier. Irish immigrants went straight to the frontier and set up farms every time. True or false?
False.
Irish immigrants never went to the frontier, never set up farms, always moved into big cities. True or false?
I was about to say false.
I would say more true.
More true, but not.
They all moved to New York City.
I've never seen.
Every last one of them at first.
Come on now.
There may be Philadelphia, Boston. No, these Irish, and once again, to this very day, when immigrants come to America, do they have visions of starting farms?
No.
Have they ever had visions of starting farms? Are they escaping farms? They want big city jobs with hopes and dreams of starting their own business, or getting a good paid factory job, of living a life better than their parents and grandparents stuck on their peasant villages with no help of ever achieving anything. They are escaping their peasant villages. They're not coming here to start farms again. They never have. Not the poor immigrants. On the other hand, there were Germanic immigrants who started farms and such. But so keep those separate in your mind. When we're talking about these immigrants, we're talking about the poor Irish immigrants moving into the East Coast cities like New York and Philadelphia and Boston, and all of the immense ethnic prejudice, religious prejudice that they faced. Generations of prejudice. Maybe you didn't know, but in the Old South, you never risked a slave on a dangerous job where he might die and you lose a $1,500 investment, which would be the equivalent of $300,000 or $400,000 today. You send some useless Irishman to die. Who cares if they die for 50 cents an hour? Nobody does. Okay. Of course, the Irishman, who everyone looks down on, is a free human being, aren't they? Who they and their children can grow up to become more successful human beings someday. A slave is stuck as a slave, aren't they? Okay, so I hope you all know that. What would you choose to be back then, a pampered slave or a dirt poor Irishman? I picked a dirt poor Irishman myself. Okay, maybe there's a future for at least your kids. Okay, but please keep those in mind. All right, very good. Anything more? And once again, is there anyone in this room who knows what the Philadelphia Bible riots were about? Because you read about the book. There's only one paragraph. Philadelphia Bible riots were basically about what? Nothing. All right, you can all get that one wrong. Good. Okay, it's in the book. You are expected to read the book. If you think you make me happy when you tell me that all you've been doing is taking notes and you're not reading the book, that's not making me happy. Why should it make me happy? Okay? But I will be happy if you miss all the questions from chapters 9 and 12 because you did not read it. That will make me very, very happy. Not unhappy, but happy, because it'll prove that you need to read the book. Yes?
What is that with the Treaty of Ghent?
The Treaty of Ghent ended which war?
1812.
There you go. No, isn't it? Yeah. As a matter of fact, you might know that also that the Treaty of Ghent was based on the status quo anti-Dom. Who gained from the War of 1812? Which side gained materially? Which side won the War of 1812 because they gained something from it? Neither gained anything. Okay. Neither side gained anything from the war. So why did Americans think they won the war?
Because we won the last battle.
The Battle of New Orleans, because we won the last battle. Okay, that's right. Which really didn't decide anything, did it? It just made us feel good, like winning the last game of the football season, so the Cowboys finished 2-14.
If we would have,
and we could have a good feeling in our head.
what if we would have lost though? Would that have maybe impacted?
Then we would have felt that we had been totally defeated. The Hartford Convention would have looked different. The Federalists might have survived. A different man might have been elected president in 1816. Some different things would have happened. Yes.
Andrew Jackson introduced the Indian Removal Act?
Yes, to Congress. And it was the fact that he was elected president and he wants this done means the Congress is going to bend to their will and pass a law that they might not have passed otherwise. Yes?
What was the spoil system?
What was the spoil system? In most simplest case, what is the spoil system that was first introduced by Andrew Jackson, but which I will talk about in U.S. history too when it becomes much more important? Do you know, Charles?
The victory belongs to the spoil.
That's right, that's the story. That is that you get elected president by making lots of promises to your supporters, that if they give you time and money and energy and endorse you, you will reward them with cushy government jobs. I get elected to office, and then I give you all nice high-paid jobs with no responsibilities, and you spend the next 4 years making sure I get reelected. So you can keep your cushy government job with no real responsibilities but a lovely salary. Okay? And countries that have a spoil system don't have very functioning democracies, because the government officials don't care about enforcing the law, they care about keeping their position by making sure their party wins elections. Okay? And obviously the spoil system would grow and grow in America, eventually becoming a massive problem. And to this very day, it's what holds back most third world countries. The people would like to develop, the economic opportunities there, but the spoil system and the government stifle all opportunities for economic growth and hold the countries back. Okay. I expect Mexico has a very impressive and powerful spoil system going in place. Okay, enough of that. Anything more before we move on? One more question about the test?
The Jefferson's Embargo Act, that really didn't help you.
It did not help the American economy. It damaged the American economy without really damaging the British economy for many, many years, until finally we declared war in England anyway when the economic warfare did not work. And of course, remember the paradox, by the time we did declare war on them, the Embargo Act had finally hurt the British economy, and they were willing to compromise, but it was too late, we declared war. A wonderful lesson there about the problem with trade warfare: it takes too long. Remember, we engaged in a trade war against Saddam Hussein for 12 years after the first Gulf War, and it never brought him down until finally we went ahead and invaded him. Yes?
The banks, is that why Jackson introduced the pet bank?
Because he had destroyed the Bank of the United States. The Bank of the United States was responsible for collecting our government. The Bank of the United States was operating as what we call today the IRS.
Is that why he introduced the act?
Yeah. No, the Species Circular Act is a little different there. This is all economics, so as I understand, it can be difficult for you to understand, which is why I'm covering it in class again. Okay? When you mix government economic policy, it's hard for some people to understand. The pet banks had printed up too much paper money, causing an orgy of loans, causing an orgy of loan speculation, an orgy of buying land out west, causing the price of land to go too high. There was going to be collapse and it was going to ruin the American economy. So Jackson decided to push to the Congress the Specie Circular Act, which made it illegal to buy land out west with paper money, making the American people think by 1837 that their paper money was worthless, causing an economic collapse. Once again, the Specie Circular Act was passed to avoid an economic collapse. It caused an economic collapse. To save the United States from an economic collapse in 2009, we spent hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars on a stimulus bill and hundreds of billions of dollars bailing out every bank in America. And the result is unbelievable budget deficits and a national debt beyond belief, and 10 or 20 years now of never being able to do anything for anyone ever again because we've spent every last penny we possibly ever spent. Okay, which was another probable reason why we should vote Obama out of office and then vote to punish George Bush somehow a second time.
Did you see his conversation with Matt Lauer the other night?
He's still not any
Oh my
more intelligent
God.
than he was before.
That was
He's
ridiculous.
just a regular guy. Okay, he
Still
never
funny, though.
was all that brilliant. But he's not as stupid as people think. I mean, he can address the topics. Talk about
He can skirt the topics pretty good.
skirt the topics,
Yeah.
yes. Obama is far more intelligent than him, but getting into more and more trouble every day, mostly because of that intelligence. Anything more? Good. Let's move on then. The material for test number 4. And reality sets in now, and we're just going to you know, most of this test is almost entirely about the Civil War, one way or another. Essay question number 2. Chapter 13 is about the South, the Old South and slavery. And after all, the Civil War was fought about slavery, so chapter 13 and essay question number 2 are the social origins of the problems that led to the Civil War. And then number 3 in chapter 14 is the political background to the Civil War. And then number 4 is the specific events that led to the Civil War. Then number 5 is the Civil War. So 4 of the 5 questions are on the Civil War. And in fact, more than 80% of the test questions will be questions on slavery in the Old South, or political events that led to the Civil War, or the Civil War itself. So this chapter 11, Discuss America's War with Mexico, is the least important chapter on the test. Also, this means we're going to have a test with 2 wars, which is always difficult because you might get information from one war mixed with the other. But not this time. I mean, what could be more different, a war with Mexico or the Civil War? You should not mix the other. And are there going to be lots of questions on the test about the Civil War? Are there going to be lots of questions on the test about the war with Mexico? No, there'll be like 1 question on the test about the war with Mexico for every 2 or 3 questions on the test about the Civil War. So you're only going to get a few. And so I really need to run through this as quick as possible. Okay, the study guide shows you the same thing. That we've got a very big study guide with lots of terms and very few of them. Chapter 11, chapter 13, 14, and 15 are all a single unit, all pushing us towards the Civil War. So chapter 11 is the odd man out, and I need to push through it as quickly as humanly possible. Okay, good. Let me get a map or 2 out and get started. Today we have just enough time to cause, once again, as you might expect, I don't even have the cause course and everything. The war with Mexico, almost the entire, I just say Discuss America's War with Mexico. And once again, it's almost entirely a lecture how we got into the war in the first place. And then what the results of the war are. With the actual fighting itself, just not that important. We won every battle. No. Almost every battle, interestingly enough. It's just like the War of 1812. The least important thing is the fighting itself. The really important stuff is how do we get in the war itself. And I have to talk about manifest destiny, and then I have to talk about the new nation called Mexico, then I have to talk about the Texas Revolution, and Sam Houston, and Davy Crockett. Davy Crockett? Yeah. And there's a lot of, no, I haven't even gotten to the war yet. So I have a lot of things to talk about. There's a lot of background. So, see, We've already covered this. So now I'm going to talk about all this background stuff. This is all background. And we don't actually get to the war until then. And then this is just there. And then here's the conclusion. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms concerning the origin of the war, 2 terms with the end of the war, and these 2 terms about the war. Really, what am I telling you? The dates of the war and the name of our commander. There you go. That's why the study guide right there. All right. So let's run along. Okay. The first phrase of the study guide, manifest destiny. Manifest destiny and the penny press is something I have to talk about right away. And it's a perfect opportunity for me to prove that I am not an old-fashioned apologist of the United States trying to turn a U.S. history class into, you've got to love America no matter what, we've never done anything wrong, we only do good things, and even if we do bad things, I can explain why it was a good thing. It's not my style of teaching. And so certainly we are going to be introducing a lecture for a war that did not have to be fought. And that will be my theme. My theme will not be conservative, I can explain why the war in Mexico was a good thing, or liberal, I'm going to pound America in the dirt until it suffers and says, uncle. In between, instead, like always, this war didn't really need to be fought. And everything could have turned out approximately the same way it is now, without the need of a war. If any of you think that if it wasn't for the war with Mexico, you'd be in Mexican territory right now, no, you wouldn't. The problem is you're that. And we'll find out. I think I can prove my argument as well in just a moment. I'm now going to read from my lecture notes. The manifest destiny was the optimistic feeling among many people in America that because of our liberties and prosperity, our nation was destined to expand all the way across North America to the Pacific Ocean. We are such a great country. Look at our Constitution, our liberties, our freedom and democracy. We deserve to rule North America from sea to shining sea. From the Atlantic Ocean all the way across the Pacific. Maybe not the entire continent of North America, but a strip all the way across should be ours. That God and nature wants it that way because we're so great. Now, you can call it optimistic. Later on, I will use the word arrogant. Okay, means much the same. Because if you happen to be Mexico or an Indian nation in our way of manifest destiny, then you better get out of the way or you're going to get run over by our manifest destiny steamroller, which is what we did then. There's another word for manifest destiny, expansionist. Americans who wanted to expand our territory and make the United States bigger one way or another. If Indian tribes want to peacefully cede their land, fine. If not, we'll take it by force. If Mexico wants to sell us land, fine. If not, we'll take it by force. It is the idea of many Americans, but not all, because specifically I'm talking about Democrats. Democrats pushed manifest destiny ideas to get elected. Whigs opposed manifest destiny as mean-spirited and arrogant. After all, most Whigs were big city Easterners. By this time already, by the 1840s, do you think there was anyone in New York City who ever dreamed about moving west and starting a farm? No. Big city people don't leave. If you were already in the 1840s, if you were living in Boston or New York or Philadelphia, the West was very far away. You would never visit it any time in your life. It was something you read about in dime store novels. A fictional place far, far away. It was not central. On the other hand, if you were a Southerner or a Westerner whose family had already moved several times further west, and you knew yourself that you would probably move further west, wouldn't you? And that your children would probably move further west than that. Then the idea that you might end up running up against the American border in the west and not having any place to expand to was frightening, and you were certainly in favor of it. Abraham Lincoln's parents had moved 3 times across Kentucky and ended up in Illinois by the time he was 14 years old. Okay, they'd already moved 3 times. Starting, what's he doing? He's moving west, starting a farm and failing. If you read chapter 9 and 12, you'll know that most farmers borrowed a lot of money to start a farm, and the farm failed, But luckily, back in the old days, they didn't have anything like ID cards or Social Security cards. What did you do in the old days if you couldn't pay your bank loan and your farm failed?
Moved.
You just changed your name and moved somewhere else. And so when you finally succeeded, you would be Tom Henderson this time. And everyone would remember you as Tom Henderson because that was the farm that worked, where you were able to pay your loan. Those were the good old days when you could just abscond on your loans. But are not millions of Americans right now simply walking away from their houses?
Yes.
And they're never going to pay? Did I walk away from my credit card and I'm never going to pay? You better believe it. That was years ago. They ain't getting a penny. They want to garnish my wages, I will just stop teaching. They'll get not a penny from me, I'll tell you what. Beach bum in San Diego, plan B. Okay. Yeah. Huh?
Fishermen in Brazil right here.
Fishermen in Brazil? Dude, they have no social welfare system in Brazil at all. Fishermen in San Diego. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. You get out of this country and you're not going to get any help from the government at all.
Well, I'm just preparing for the collapse.
Oh, the collapse?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure that right our country collapses, Brazil won't collapse
And
either.
then you move to Brazil.
Yeah.
Nice beaches.
We're just gonna go to Australia.
Chile.
I'm going to Dubai.
Chile is a far more prosperous country than Brazil. Chile is a far more prosperous country than Brazil.
I thought, well, yeah, I guess you're...
The middle class, there's a middle class in Chile. There's no middle class in Brazil. Just masses of poor people and a small number of incredibly wealthy people, rich people. You don't want to move in a country like that. You want to move to a country with the middle class. Chile is becoming the United States of South America. And their flag looks just like Texas's flag. You notice that?
Yeah.
It's Texas's flag. That's really impressive. Anyway, Texas's flag. Wait a minute. That's not quite. So close. Okay.
I think it stops, right?
The red.
Like it's just in the corner.
There's
The red
also a
goes all the way
full
down.
white stripe across. Instead of ours goes down all the way.
Yeah, so did the Texas flag come first? I was curious about that. I was wondering which one came first.
First of all, it's not just when Chile became a country, but when they picked their flag. Because flags can change, so I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. All right, moving along then. And I just said what I said. Very good. All right. So that's now the penny press. You see, this is a democracy. In a democracy, candidates who want to be elected to office need to find out what the people already want and believe in, and then say that's what you want and believe in, regardless of whether you do or not, to get elected. Never do our leaders convince or brainwash us to believe in something that we don't really want to believe in, but our leaders brainwashed us. That never happens. We get into wars because the people want us to, etc., etc. Manifest Destiny was popular with the masses. So Democrats picked up on it to get elected. And so did newspapers. Newspapers are for-profit corporate entities in this country, are they not? They do not exist to give you information. They exist to make a profit through advertising. And the more people who read a newspaper, the more money you can charge for your advertising, correct? And make more money. So that's what newspapers have always been about in this country. In any other country where there's a free press, it's not run by the government. There's still funding issues involved. So back then it's called the penny press because it cost a penny. These newspapers cost originally a penny. Okay, and I hope you guys know this very day that newspapers don't make, they make what, a very small amount of their money from selling the papers, and almost all of it from the advertising. Okay. The penny press picked up on the expansionist ideas in Manifest Destiny. Back in those days, newspapers weren't mostly about news. They were mostly what we would call today editorials and sports and classifieds. I mean, that's why newspapers originally existed, for the classified ads. That's how businessmen can take a temperature of the local economy. How much did you pay your employees if you start a new company? How much did you charge for your products if you start a new company? How can you find out? By checking the classified. How much are other people charging? How much are other people paying? It gives you a feel. Before the age of the internet, the classified was the only way to find out the pace of the economy, the real way. The real way to find. So the penny press began pushing ideas. America needs to expand further west. We should take more territory. We should push all the way to the Pacific. That sold more newspapers. And that convinced politicians that if they presented those ideas as theirs, they would get elected, they would get re-elected.
Was the horse reading that you introduced? Go West on
That's right. Yes. The very idea. Go West, young man. The idea is that anyone can succeed out West was a complete fantasy. In fact, when you moved out West, you found out that you were now facing a very difficult life. And that if you succeeded, it would be after years and years of very hard labor. But there you go. There's always been a disconnect between how much wealth there really is in America and how much wealth people think there is before they get there. Okay. Okay. Good. So that's the penny press. Now, let's talk about the nation of Mexico. Now, I don't have a map of Mexico, so I'm just going to have to use my map of the war with Mexico, because this map at least is giving me most, but not all, of the nation of Mexico, which originally was everything on this map, yellow, dark green, and light green. The original borders of Mexico. The Republic of Mexico. They launched their revolution in the 1810s, and by 1821 Mexico was free of Spain. An independent nation with its own government, its own constitution. Mexico is a relatively, it's not a small country, so 100 million people live in Mexico today. Okay. So Mexico was always a country with a relatively dense population, especially in the areas around Mexico City. But back then, when you moved north into northern Mexico, or areas that are today part of the United States, they were very, very lightly populated with Mexican peoples. For example, here in Texas, you would find Mexican peoples living as far as San Antonio, but no further north. Santa Fe. And even in California, Spain was just building the very first missions to begin the process of converting the Indians to Christianity about the time of the American Revolution. And as late as the 1840s, there were only a few thousand Mexican nationals living in California, and a few hundred Americans who would be living in another country. Like, what's his name? Sutter. Sutter's Mill, the gold rush. Sutter had been living in the Sacramento Valley for many, many years, which means that he would have been living in a country called Mexico during that time. Whether Sutter was a Mexican citizen, no, he wasn't. He wasn't a Mexican citizen. He was an American living in Mexico. Okay. All right. Let's move along. I'm only going to say a few of the things I normally say. The Mexican government was aware that America was a fast-growing country with a larger population than Mexico, which was experiencing a spontaneous sweep west, that literally hundreds of thousands of Americans were picking up, voluntarily deciding to move west and start new farms in hopes of becoming wealthy or having a better life. The government was not ordering Americans to move west. Nobody was forcing or even encouraging anyone to go west. They were doing it on their own. You know what I'm trying to say? Spontaneous. Like the tide coming in. You can build a sandcastle to keep it out, but the ocean's finally going to overwhelm it. Americans were moving west, settling in Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa. They were going to continue to move west. They would eventually be in Tejas. T-E-J-A-S, the Spanish name for this region. And once again, please realize that political borders cannot be seen from space or an airplane. And that it's just going round. And there's nothing to stop Americans from settling in East Texas. Especially there's no Mexicans, because no Mexican people live in East Texas. No one lives in North Texas. Many of you have seen that little joke we have around here. The plaque. On this day in 1835, nothing happened. You've seen that? Because there was no one living in North Texas in 1835. And I also mean no Indians. You think Indians would live here when you could live in other parts of North America that are livable? I hope you know that the only reason Dallas is livable is because of the incredible effort at landscaping. We have a nature preserve over in North Richardson. that's very famous, and in Carrollton we have a nature preserve. And they're unusual nature preserves because they have completely alien plants in them, because naturally there's only one thing that grows here: thorns and more thorns. Yeah, no one wants to go to a nature preserve that would have authentic 1820s plants and animals, because it'd be nothing but thorns with more thorns growing out of the thorns. Okay, it was unlivable here, humanly unlivable in this Dallas area. No rivers, just horrible. Okay, until we cleared it all out. So nobody lived in North Texas, no Mexicans in East Texas. And so the Mexican government realized they had to cut some kind of a deal. Why not, what do you use a dog to eat a dog, as the saying goes. The danger is American citizens illegally immigrating into Mexico. And so the solution is to let a small number of Americans legally to migrate into Mexico by accepting Mexican citizenship. Those people would then be given private property rights over all of East and North Texas, and they would then be the bulwark to keep out other Americans, because Americans don't like trespassers. And of course, what is the name of the famous Texan who led the first few thousand Southerners into Mexico, into Texas, as Mexican citizens to begin the American settlement?
Stephen Austin.
Stephen F. Austin, who has agreed to dual citizenship, we would call it today. They did not abandon our American citizenship, but they did accept Mexican citizenship. That was in the 1820s. So by the time that the revolution, the Texas Revolution breaks out, there have been Anglos living in Texas for about 5 or 10 years under Stephen F. Austin, which is why the university is in East Texas, at Nacogdoches, which is where many of these first settlers arrived. And so now we have to talk about the Texas Revolution and the Republic of Texas. Once again, without hurting feelings. At this point, I have to stop saying we, because who am I talking about? We, Americans, or we, the large numbers of you with Mexican or Hispanic heritage? Because in that case, the we is a different we. And exactly, we're not all siding with the same side here. There was a time, even before I was alive, when Charles went to school, when we were taught about these heroic Anglos who put down those evil Mexicans and their naughty ideas, and let's look up to Davy Crockett and Thomas Bowie and all the heroes at the Alamo who were brutally gunned down by the evil Mexicans, huh?
Not Thomas.
Dewey? What? David Bowie, not Thomas Dewey. That was another guy. David Bowie with his Bowie knife, and he spent the entire siege in bed, did he not? Desperately sick and ill, but he was able to gun a few guys down at the end. But he still could kill a few Mexicans. Even in bed, he could kill Mexicans. Okay, well that's a long time ago. Okay, so I'm certainly not going to buy into any of that. But the plain fact is, in real history, there aren't any good guys or bad guys. Everybody's a bad guy. Okay, so let's move along. What if Santa Anna had never lived? That's what many Mexicans still think to themselves, because boy, the country would have been in a better place if they had had a George Washington instead of a Santa Anna. Because Mexico started off with a constitution and democracy almost identical to the American Constitution and American democracy, and then it all went terribly wrong. By the middle of the 1830s, a dictator had taken over and eliminated Mexican democracy and replaced it with a military dictatorship, Santa Anna, who called himself the Napoleon of the West. As a result, large parts of Mexico began to break away from the dictator. And only one of these regions were white people involved in the breaking away. Yes, this province known as Tejas, which had always been what we could call an autonomous zone, a special area of Mexico with additional level of independence. When Stephen F. Austin, many of you may know that Mexico banned slavery the first day of its existence. But the Mexicans very nicely let Stephen F. Austin and the Anglos who settled in East Texas bring their slaves with them. Okay. With Santa Anna having overthrown the government, with Mexicans up in arms against each other, and the white people didn't call themselves from Tejas, they called themselves from Texas and called themselves Texicans. Launched a revolution against Santa Anna. So did other parts. The entire Yucatan Peninsula seceded from Mexico in the late 1840s. the people of Chiapas and Yucatan, where people are not primarily mixed race, like most Mexicans, but entirely 100% Indian, and have always chafed under what they see as unfair rule by the Mexico City, which doesn't care a damn about them, was independent for 50 years before Mexico took them back again. So this didn't happen in a vacuum. Okay. In addition, Mexico used to include all the countries of Central America, Nicaragua and Honduras and Guatemala. They were all part of Mexico. But when Santa Anna took over the dictatorship, they seceded from Mexico. No one wants Guatemala to become part of Mexico again. Well, it should become part of Mexico. Of course, it's dirt poor, whereas Arizona, New Mexico, and California are quite prosperous. But moving along, Santa Anna needs to prove that he deserves to be dictator of Mexico by putting down these rebellions. Then his government will be legitimate. So he is going to march the Mexican army, many thousand men strong, up into Texas to put down this rebellion by only a few thousand Texican civilians. There were Mexican peoples who fought on Santa Anna's side. There were Mexican peoples who fought on the side of the Texicans. After all, Mexico was experiencing a civil war. That's what happens in a civil war. People fight against each other within their own country. Well, the Texicans are not fighting a civil war. They're fighting, in their mind, a war of independence, a revolution. They don't want to be part of Mexico, regardless of whether Santa Anna is the leader or not. They want to become part of the United States. Never in their mind, the Texicans did not want to become an independent country. Did they become an independent country?
Yes.
Yes. Please realize that Texas is unique in the United States, or virtually unique. We were an independent country for 10 years before we became part of the United States. The Republic of Texas, 1836 to 1845. Independent country. Because after Texas won the War of Independence with Mexico and asked to become part of the United States, Congress said no, leaving us out in the cold for 10 years. Okay, in case you now know the details. This makes Texas unique. As a result, you can fly the Texas flag at the same height as the American flag, because the Texas flag was once the flag of an independent country, and it has as a result the same respect as the American flag, which you cannot do with the California flag, which must be below the American flag, not at the same level. Most people just think it's because we're Arab in Texas. In addition, we have all sorts of special advantages over other states. There are all the offshore drilling rights are owned by the state of Texas, not the federal government. There is no federal land anywhere in Texas except for one location. You probably know out west, many western states, half of the entire land is owned by the federal government, national parks and such. There's only one piece of federal land in the entirety of Texas. It was given to the federal government by Texas in World War I and World War II for wartime. What am I talking about? All military bases are on federal land, are they not?
Yeah.
So Fort Hood is owned by the federal government. It's the only piece of land in the entire state of Texas owned by the federal government. Okay, makes us very different. We also have the right to split up into 5 states if we so wish, which we would never do. Okay, but we have that right as well, because we were an independent country. Although Hawaii was an independent country as well, but they were independent natives. A little prejudice there, you understand? We're pushing there again. Yes.
What would those states be if they split up?
Exactly. What would they be?
Why'd they choose 5?
That's just how many the federal government agreed to. I mean, what if you separated South Texas, where they were all Democrats and Hispanics, from the rest of Texas? How prosperous would South Texas be by itself? I would think very poor. Very poor. How about if West Texas was a state by itself? How prosperous would West Texas be without Houston and Dallas and Fort Worth as a tax base? Yeah, I think North Texas could handle itself. We'd become a second Oklahoma. Right? I'm not into it. Okay. No one ever has. It's a stupid idea. We would never do it. You know, it'd give us 10 senators, but then we'd really be 5 different states, wouldn't we? Maybe with nothing in common. Okay, that's why it would never happen. All right. Okay. There were battles fought. The famous Battle of the Alamo and Goliad. In reality, the Alamo is a holding action by a very small number of Texicans who are trying to slow down Santa Anna because the Texicans have a chance of winning thousands of American civilians are voluntarily arriving in Texas as volunteers to join the Mexican militia. The American government is officially neutral, but thousands of gung-ho Southerners who see an opportunity to get free land, cheap amount of money, have brought their rifles and are joining this militia. So the militia is growing by leaps and bounds, made up of people who have now been only in Texas for a few weeks. Okay? But, so all we need is some time, a few months, a few weeks, and then we might be strong enough to defeat the Mexican army. So that's why all those men sacrificed their lives at the Alamo. Or they were trying to keep all that gold secret that supposedly was hidden somewhere that no one has ever found.
Basement.
Huh?
It's in the basement.
It's in the basement of the Alamo? That's good because we all know, what about the basement of the Alamo? There isn't one.
Right.
There are no basements in Texas. There's no basement in the Alamo. There never has been. Okay. And then I don't even want to go about the Battle of Goliad, and they captured all the Texicans and made them all reach in, picked the beans, and 9/10 of them were black, and anyone who got the black beans had to die, and the white beans went and told the rest of them, all right, that's what you do in a rebellion. You put people down. You sow fear in their hearts. That's what Santa Anna was doing. And by April of 1836, Santa Anna had made it all the way to what today would be the city of Houston, very close to the American border. He felt he'd won the war and put down the Texican rebellion. So his guard was down, the Mexican army was already in a celebratory mood, and they had no pickets, no guards, nobody on watch. It's lunchtime and they've got their siesta. But that's when the Battle of San Jacinto occurred, when the great turnaround occurred, because there was a Texican army, several thousand strong, under the command of a man named Sam Houston. Sam Houston was the hero of the Texas Revolution, and a perfect example of the kind of people who went to Texas. Three-time losers, horse thieves, criminals, and unwanted people. Sam Houston was one of these unwanted. You know that Texas doesn't have the best climate on earth. And there was a lot better farmland in America than Texas. So if you settled Texas because you had done something wrong in every other state, you had no place else to go except further west. When you end up in West Texas, you've gone too far. Now you can't farm. So this is it, okay? Sam Houston was a famous politician who had just finished being the governor of Tennessee. And while he was the governor of Tennessee, he did something unacceptable by most Americans. He was fair to the Indians. He had Indian friends. He had Indian in-laws, and refused to simply seize Indian land in Tennessee without negotiations, contracts, and fair payments. So the people of Tennessee wrote him out of the state on a rail and told him to never go home, never come back again. So he went to Texas, where he was immediately welcomed. He's a high-ranking American, a well-known and famous and powerful politician, just who we need as a leader, someone everyone can rally around. No one, he's the George Washington of Texas. And he leads our forces defeating San Antonio's Mexican army in San Jacinto. This is one of these things, you guys do know that Texas is incredibly flat, but sometimes that's an illusion. You guys know that if you're standing in one place and the land goes up 10 feet and then goes down 10 feet, that from your point of view it'll just look flat because the rise is too slow. And there could be somebody standing just a mile away and you can't see them because the ground goes up 10 feet and then down 10 feet, so you think it's flat forever. Flat land can be very deceptive. Very deceptive. So the Mexican army was in a position, whereas the Texicans marched, they could not be seen, even though it looked like they were on absolute flat land. And as we go over the top of that little low rise and attack the Mexicans, they're in bed. They're having their siesta. They don't have their weapons. And so it's like the battles of Princeton and Trenton. It's a walkover. The Mexican army is captured with their pants down, and they all are captured virtually without much gunfire. Actually, there were a lot of dead. There were a lot of dead Mexicans at the battle. Let's not get into that. There might have been a slaughter. But one person was not slaughtered, Santa Anna. Santa Anna tried to escape by changing clothes with his servant and pretending to be the emperor's servant. Except when Santa Anna was captured in servant's clothing, he was wearing silk underwear. Servants don't wear silk underwear. Emperors wear silk underwear. As you might expect, we didn't know what Santa Anna looked like. but we were pretty sure that this guy in silk underwear was Santa Anna. And then the Texicans, Sam Houston, very slyly offered Santa Anna a deal he could not refuse. Santa Anna could have given up his life for his country and be remembered as a hero. Instead, he sold Mexico out. The Texicans offered Santa Anna a chance to live if he signed a peace treaty giving up Texas and letting the Texans be independent. And he signed that document. But we not only demanded Santa Anna sign a document giving the area, this purple area, which was already the private property of Anglos. This is the area that was owned by Anglo-Americans. It had been sold to them by the Mexicans before the Revolution. This is the area that Santa Anna signed to us. Everything on the other side of the Rio Red was now the nation of Texas, including large areas that no American had ever even seen. West Texas. No American had ever set foot in West Texas, much less very few Mexicans. It's Comanche land out here, in fact. So we now have, the Texicans now have a country much bigger than they probably deserve and can actually control. And it's this difference between where the border should be, the Rio Grande or the Nueces, that will be the cause of our war with Mexico. But we only have a few minutes left. I have a perfect place to stop now. Just finishing this up. As I said, the Texicans immediately asked to become a state of the Union. But they wanted to be a slave state, of course. These are all Southern slave owners. They brought their slaves with them to Texas. Whigs and Yankees from the North had had enough of adding more slave states. The Yankees and Whigs in Congress voted no. They would not allow Texas in the Union. And so Texas had to survive for 10 years as a country with far too few people living in it to be a country. No tax base. They couldn't even support a government. They couldn't have an army. And so Texas invented something else. The Texas Rangers. Instead of having an army, we picked a couple dozen psychopaths and gave them each 24 guns. And whenever anything went wrong, the Texas Rangers would go in there and just start killing everyone randomly until violence stopped. To this very day, Texas Rangers are different from highway patrols everywhere else in America. Okay, and if any of you had any experience with Texas Rangers, I kind of like them. Because, you know, Texas Rangers will always start a conversation with you while they're threatening you. Yeah, with the cowboy hat on. That hat, yeah, that walk. George, it takes about 10 minutes and then get to your car. And you're waiting, sweat starts pouring down. You know, that last 10 feet, they really slow down, they look at your car. Yeah. Because regular cops, they come up on the other side now, don't they?
Yeah.
They're afraid of it. They come to the passenger side. Texas Ranger will come right up there. How's it going? Yeah. Okay, that's it then, for now. So that's all I could cover for today. On Thursday, we will be in chapter 13. I literally only have a half hour worth of lectures left from the War of Mexico, and we will be in chapter 13 on Thursday. Very good. Okay. Good luck on the test. I will kick the test up on Thursday. I will get them back to you a week from Thursday.
What is the last one?
Wednesday. Day, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Normal closing time.
Today is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Correct. Tomorrow. Wednesday. I said Wednesday.
Wait, what?
Wednesday. Tomorrow. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are the last days to take the test. I know Monday's already expired. Damn it. 8th, 9th, and 10th, like I put on the board. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Roxanne?
Ow.
You're welcome.
Palm hurts.
Tomorrow.
Surveys.
Yeah, we never did the surveys.
What? Yeah, I know. So, I mean, when's the deadline?
I think you can do it Thursday.
I have it till after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So, like I said, I'll
remind you 10 minutes before the...
You know, I'm not going to do it till next week at least.
Okay.
Your job is to remind me if I forget when the semester's almost over.
Okay, well, I'll do it.
Then I'll get into trouble with the teacher. Because I don't know about that. What do you mean? Well, for what? What?
Because they're going through and like redoing some departments.
I'm always the last one to know. I don't know. I don't care. Oh, well. Well, I'm teaching it for 20.
I'm student body president.
You're student body president. So I know you don't want to argue.
I'll just remind you on Tuesday. Well,
Just enough time for.
well, it's not that like big of a deal. It's just I know that not the history part. It's more.
Okay, there you go. It's interesting.
But viewing not the social science department.
Oh no, of course not.
Okay, great. All right.
So Tuesday,
Okay, yeah, that's right.
and then I'll take care of him. And
Oh, I would-
I'll take him over to the office.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so tired. I need a little bit.